Chapter 1. The Perfect Illusion. Marriage was supposed to be a sanctuary, a bond built on trust, memories, and dreams whispered in the quiet hours of the night. That's what I thought every time I looked at Rachel, the woman I had loved since we were 16. Back then, we had nothing but each other and the hope that one day we'd make something of ourselves. That hope had been enough. Now I watched her from across the kitchen table, phone in hand, face illuminated by the soft glow of a text she clearly didn't want me to see. "Another client emergency?" I asked casually, sipping my coffee. Rachel barely looked up. "Yeah, the Peterson account's a mess. They need last-minute adjustments." I nodded, smiling like a fool. "You've been working a lot lately." She finally glanced up, offering a tight-lipped smile. "It's the job, Ethan. You know how it is." Yes, I did know, because I helped build this company from behind the curtain, the one she thought she was climbing through sheer merit. She didn't know I had a different last name in the records, didn't know I was the ghost founder's son, hiding in plain sight. And for a long time, I wanted it that way. I took another sip, watching her fingers move quickly over her phone. I caught a name flash across the top of her screen. C. That was new. She set the phone down, screen down, a subtle act, an instinctive one. The illusion started cracking that morning. At work, I sat at my desk like a regular guy, in a cubicle far away from the penthouse offices. No one ever suspected I was the heir to Donovan Tech, one of the largest AI and cloud infrastructure firms in the world. My father, Henry Donovan, built it from the ground up. And when I turned 21, he handed me a letter and told me that when the time was right, I could take it all. But I didn't want the legacy then. I didn't want the boardrooms, the power plays, or the family name. I wanted a life built by my own two hands. I wanted Rachel, a small apartment, and the dream that we were building something real, without the weight of a dynasty pressing on us. So I hit it, changed my last name, entered the company like any other guy with a computer science degree. And for a while, that choice made me happy. But as I sat in that cubicle, staring at my screen, I couldn't focus. Rachel's distant smile replayed in my head. The name C. The late nights, the scent of cologne that wasn't mine, the way she showered before bed, not after waking up. All little clues, once harmless, now forming a haunting mosaic. That evening, she came home later than usual. I had cooked dinner, her favorite, lemon chicken with rosemary potatoes. She barely touched her plate. "You didn't have to go through all this," she said, scrolling on her phone again. "I wanted to. It's been a while since we sat down and just ate together." She gave me a distracted smile. "You're sweet, but I'm wiped." I watched her walk to the bedroom, and I heard the soft click of the door locking behind her. My stomach twisted. I wasn't imagining this. The next day I made the call. A friend of mine from college, now a private investigator, owed me a favor. I gave him Rachel's phone number, license plate, and schedule. He didn't ask many questions, just said, "Give me a few days." In those few days, I lived two lives. At work, I was the dependable Ethan Clark, quiet, intelligent, unnoticed. At home, I was a husband pretending not to notice his wife smiling at texts she deleted seconds later. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. I didn't want to fight. I wanted to know. Because something inside me had shifted. The part of me that wanted to protect her no matter what was dying. And the part that had long buried my legacy, it was starting to wake up. Chapter 2. The cracks begin to show. It's funny how silence can scream louder than words. That's what our house had become, a stage dressed in comfort, echoing with quiet betrayals. Rachel and I still shared meals, still exchanged pleasantries, still kissed each other goodnight. But her eyes never stayed on me long. Her smile had timing now, like it was rehearsed. It was Friday night when the cracks turned into fault lines. "Going out again?" I asked as she smoothed her dress in the hallway mirror. Burgundy, short, too expensive for the occasion, she claimed. A girls' night with coworkers. She didn't even flinch. "Yeah, Lisa just got promoted. Drinks at Marlowe's." I nodded, stepping forward, pretending to help straighten the strap on her shoulder. My fingers lingered on her skin for a beat too long. She shifted. "You look amazing," I said. "Thanks," she replied, not meeting my eyes. I didn't press. I had already installed a small GPS tracker in her car earlier that week, one of those tech prototypes the company scrapped for ethical reasons. Irony wasn't lost on me. When she left, I poured myself a drink and stared at the blinking cursor on my laptop, waiting for a notification. At 9:23 p.m. it came. She wasn't at Marlowe's. She was at the Carlton Hotel. Not the bar, the actual tower. I didn't follow her, not yet. I wasn't ready to see it with my own eyes. The next morning she came back around 6 a.m., tiptoeing in like I was asleep. But I wasn't. I hadn't slept at all. Her heels clacked on the hardwood as she moved quietly, changed in the guest bathroom, and slid into bed next to me without a word. I didn't move, but something inside me hardened like concrete. By Monday I had the report. The PI was thorough. Photos, timestamps, a full itinerary. Rachel had been meeting someone for over 2 months. Private lunches. Dinners in obscure restaurants. 3 confirmed overnight stays at different hotels. Always the same man. Cole Donovan, the CEO of Donovan Tech, my father's company, my company. I stared at the photo of him kissing her outside the Grand Vale, a glass of champagne in her hand, her body pressed against his. She looked alive, happy, carefree. She looked nothing like the woman who gave me rush kisses and said she was just tired lately. It was Cole. Of course it was Cole. He was every bit the charming predator my father had warned me about. Ambitious, slick, charismatic in the most manufactured way. I'd watched him from the shadows for years as he smiled for the press and paraded around the company like he owned it. But he didn't. He was a placeholder. A figurehead the board put in place because I wouldn't take my rightful role. Now I had a reason to. That night, I stood on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker beneath me. Rachel sat on the couch behind me, scrolling through her phone again. I could feel her eyes flicker up, checking to see if I was paying attention. I wasn't. Not to her. Not anymore. I was thinking about the company, about legacy, about power. If Cole thought he could steal from me, my company, my wife, he was mistaken. And Rachel, if she thought she'd traded up, if she thought she was stepping out of a struggling marriage into the arms of a CEO, she was going to learn the truth the hard way. I turned around and looked at her. She looked up, smiling. "Something wrong?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not at all," I said. "Everything's just starting to make sense." Chapter 3. The Bitter Truth. The truth didn't hit me all at once. It sank in slowly like a toxin. I kept rereading the report from the PI, even though I knew every word, every timestamp, every location burned into my memory. Rachel had been sleeping with Cole for weeks. No hesitation, no guilt, just secrecy, calculation. She had convinced herself that I was small, safe, forgettable. That was her mistake. Because I wasn't just Ethan Clark. I was Ethan Donovan, the only son of Henry Donovan, the founder and visionary behind the empire Cole now pretended to run. My father had died 5 years ago. The funeral had been a quiet affair by his request. No headlines, no press, no company drama. And when the board asked me if I wanted to step into his shoes, I told them no. I wanted freedom. I wanted love. I wanted Rachel. What a waste. I drove out to the Donovan estate that Sunday, an hour out from the city, nestled behind thick iron gates and rows of ancient oak trees. The mansion had stood empty since my father passed, but the groundskeeper still kept it in perfect condition, per my monthly payment instructions. It had always felt cold here, but that day I welcomed the chill. The library was exactly how I remembered: leather, dust, and legacy. I opened the hidden drawer in my father's desk and pulled out the letter I hadn't read in years. "Ethan, if you're reading this again, it means something has changed. Maybe life has hardened you. Maybe it's calling you home. Either way, remember this. The company was built on our name. Yours is etched into its bones. If anyone ever threatens what's ours, take it back." I folded the letter carefully, placed it in my inner coat pocket, and pulled out my phone. It was time to call Charles Lanning, my father's old lawyer and the only board member who knew my real identity. Charles answered on the second ring. "Ethan," he said, voice sharp with surprise. "Well, I'll be damned. You ready to come back from the dead? I need a board meeting, discreet, with the originals." There was a pause. Then, "Something happened?" "Yes." "Rachel?" "Her and Cole." Charles sighed. "I warned your father about that snake. Thought he could handle the company long enough until you were ready. I'm ready now." 3 days later, I stood in a private conference room on the 43rd floor of Donovan Tower. The original board, what was left of them, sat in leather chairs, each more gray-haired than the last, still loyal to the man who started it all. Gentlemen, I began, Cole Donovan is not related to our family. He never was. He's a hired mask, a distraction, and he's not just incompetent, he's reckless, and now he's made it personal. I tossed a folder onto the table, photos of Rachel and Cole together, hotel receipts, audio logs. The board reviewed it all in silence. This isn't about a failed marriage, I continued. It's about image, morality, control. This affects our stock, our legacy. Charles leaned forward. What do you want, Ethan? I want him out. And you in? I looked each of them in the eye. Yes, it's time. After the meeting, I walked out into the city with a strange calm. The wheels were turning now, quietly, slowly, but inevitably. Rachel had no idea that her lover was about to lose everything, and she had no idea who she'd really betrayed. She thought I was small, that I was just her husband, replaceable, weak, but I had been biding my time, and now I was done pretending. Chapter 4. Ghosts of the Past. The estate felt different this time. Not cold, not haunting. It felt like a vault, where I'd buried pieces of myself for years. The son, the heir, the man who had once stood at his father's bedside, holding back tears while the machines fell silent. I parked beneath the arching canopy of oaks and stood there for a moment, staring up at the grand Donovan mansion. Empty windows stared back like hollow eyes. The air smelled like pine, old paper, and memories I had long tried to forget. Inside, dust clung to the edges of the carpets, but everything else had been preserved. My father's study, the old piano my mother used to play, even the photo in the foyer of the three of us, taken before everything collapsed. I stood in front of it, a hand in my pocket, my jaw clenched. I looked like him now. Broader shoulders, sharper features, the same weary look around the eyes. I hated that resemblance, because he wasn't just a father. He was the one who raised me for war, not love. My father, Henry Donovan, had built the company from nothing, driven by brilliance and obsession. My mother, Elaine, was the only softness in our world, and when she died in that car crash, something in both of us shattered. He became colder. I became angry. For years, we lived in the same house as strangers. Until one night, when I was 21, he summoned me into this very study, handed me a leather folder, and said, "One day, this will be yours, but not until you're strong enough to handle betrayal, because it will come." I laughed at the time, young, stupid. I thought he was paranoid. Now I understood. I wandered through the library until I found the safe behind the fireplace panel. The combination hadn't changed. Inside were the original incorporation documents, shares, and a sealed envelope addressed to me. I broke the wax and read the second letter he left. "If you've opened this, it means you're ready, or you've been hurt. Either way, remember who you are. You are not a bystander in your own life. You are a Donovan, and Donovans don't beg. We take back what's ours." The words weren't fatherly, they were war declarations, instructions from a man who knew the world better than I ever wanted to. I stared at the envelope for a long time. I had tried to build a life outside this shadow. I gave up everything for love. For Rachel. And she sold me out for a man who borrowed power he didn't earn. No more running, no more pretending to be average. That evening, I made a call to one of the company's silent board members, Margot Sung, an original investor and a woman who had known me since I was a boy. "Ethan," she answered, voice sharp and low. I heard whispers. "They're true. I assume this is about Cole and Rachel." Margot exhaled like she already knew. "I told your father to keep that man away from the inner circle," she said. "Now look what's happened. I want your vote for a full transition of power." "You'll have it," she replied, "but you need to show the rest of them who you've become." "I will." Back in the city, I didn't go home that night. I booked a suite at the Monarch, a hotel Cole and Rachel had never used. Somewhere clean, strategic, high enough to watch the skyline I was about to dominate. From the window, I could see the lit-up Donovan Tower, 58 stories of steel, glass, and betrayal. The company was still in my name, legally and quietly, but now I would take it back publicly, with force. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy, and I would not let my family name become the punchline of a tabloid headline because of two liars who couldn't see past their own lust. Chapter 5. A Quiet Shift. The most dangerous moves are the ones no one sees coming. I returned to work the following Monday like nothing had changed. Same elevator, same worn-out ID badge, Same cubicle 3 floors below the executive suite. But inside, everything was different. I wasn't just Ethan Clark, the quiet systems analyst, anymore. I was Ethan Donovan, preparing to rip the mask off the company and my so-called wife. The first step? Information. I started by reactivating my administrative access to the Donovan CoreNet system, something my father and I had built as a failsafe before his passing. Buried under layers of encrypted aliases, it gave me access to everything: emails, calendars, expense reports, private meeting notes, even company-issued devices. I had never used it before, but now it was the key to unraveling Cole. Within hours, I saw it. Lavish dinners charged to company accounts with vague descriptions, travel expenses disguised as networking events, private jet use for non-corporate trips, and then the emails, Cole's private exchanges with Rachel, filthy, arrogant, and worse, talking about me. "He has no ambition," Cole had written. "You said it yourself, he's just background noise in your life." "He's too passive," Rachel replied. "He doesn't get power, you do." I sat there reading every message, letting them carve through me like knives, but I didn't close the screen. I kept reading, studying, planning. They didn't just cheat on me, they belittled me, dismissed me, underestimated me, and that would be their downfall. Over the next week, I moved in silence. I contacted the company's ethics compliance office anonymously and sent them a curated package of Cole's misuse of company funds, along with a flagged internal communication trail. Then I met with Charles and Margot again, this time in a private wing of the Donovan building, under the pretense of a routine systems audit. "This is enough to open a formal review," Charles said, flipping through the documents. "But once that starts, things move fast." "Good," I said. "I want fast." "And Rachel?" Margot asked. "She's not my concern anymore," I lied, but she was. Because every morning she still kissed me goodbye, still wore the wedding ring, still looked me in the eyes and lied like it was second nature, and I let her. Because soon she wouldn't just be caught, she'd be exposed. Cole called a company-wide meeting on Thursday. Typical performative nonsense. Talk about quarterly growth, future projections, the Donovan vision as he liked to call it. I sat in the back row, arms crossed, watching him strut on stage like a god. Rachel stood just off to the side, smiling that same rehearsed smile she wore when she lied to me. "Let's keep pushing boundaries," Cole declared. "Donovan Tech isn't just a company, it's the future." Applause. Empty, robotic applause. But I wasn't clapping because I saw it now, clearer than ever. The future wasn't his, it was mine. Later that night, Rachel returned home late again. "Sorry," she said breathlessly. "Last-minute pitch meeting with the Asia team. Time zones suck." I looked up from the couch, remote in hand, pretending to care. "All good. You hungry?" "No, we had sushi." I nodded. "With the team?" She blinked, just for a second too long. "Yeah," I smiled. "Cool." She walked to the bedroom and I stared at her back. There was a time I would have asked her to sit with me, to talk, to reconnect. Now I just let her go. Let her keep lying. Let her keep digging her grave. The next morning, HR received an official board-initiated investigation request. Anonymous, of course. By noon, Cole was pulled into a casual compliance review. By 3 p.m., Rachel texted me nervously. "Babe, something's happening at work. Cole's under review? You heard anything?" I stared at the message and smirked. No clue. Hope he's okay. Her reply came minutes later. "Yeah, same. Weird." "Weird?" "Oh, Rachel, you have no idea." Chapter 6. The Unmasking. They say a man shows his true character under pressure. Turns out, so does a thief. Cole had always walked around like he owned the sky, talking in buzzwords and empty promises. But by the end of the week, the confidence in his eyes began to dim. He wasn't smiling as much. His voice cracked when he gave morning updates. People started whispering. Meetings were postponed. Department heads started forwarding just-in-case audit files. He knew something was coming. But he didn't know from where, and that was the best part. I stayed in the shadows, exactly where they'd put me. The same Ethan Rachel had dismissed. The boring husband. The IT guy who didn't understand power. I wore my blandest shirts, gave safe, quiet answers in team meetings, blended in like I always had, and every evening I went home to the woman who was still cheating on me, though less frequently now as Cole grew more paranoid and distracted. Rachel noticed the shift before she admitted it. She grew colder, checked her phone more often, then sighed when there were no new texts. The woman who once stood in front of the mirror, humming as she got ready for their secret nights, now paced the apartment like a trapped animal. She had no idea I was holding the key. The final blow came Tuesday morning. I'd timed it perfectly. HR launched the internal audit results at 9 a.m. sharp. By 9:17, executives were huddled in glass offices with expressions of disbelief. The email that went out to shareholders at 9:38 confirmed it. A comprehensive review of senior leadership expenditures has been initiated due to inconsistencies. Rachel stormed into our apartment that evening. "Did you hear what happened today?" she asked, tossing her bag onto the counter. I sipped my coffee. "Yeah, wild, right?" She stared at me. "Wild? Ethan, Cole's being investigated. They're saying he misused company funds." I tilted my head. "Did he?" She hesitated. "No, I mean he's smart, he's careful. People just hate him because he's successful." I let the silence hang. Then I asked calmly, "Why do you care so much?" She blinked. "What? Cole, you seem really invested." Her jaw tensed. "He's my boss." "Is that all he is?" Her face twisted. "Why would you even ask that?" "I don't know," I said slowly. "I just find it odd how quick you are to defend him." She folded her arms. "You're acting weird lately," I laughed once. "Am I?" She didn't respond. Good. Let the doubt fester. 2 days later, Cole called for an emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited, obviously. Not publicly, anyway. But I was already waiting in the observation room on the other side of the mirrored wall, seated quietly next to Charles. Cole entered like a man trying to hold on to the edge of a cliff. "We need to address the rumors," he said, pacing. "This is an attack. Someone inside the company wants to ruin me." "Then explain the charges," Margot replied flatly. "Fabricated. Twisted. I've given this company 5 years of my life, and profited off every second of it," another board member muttered. Cole's jaw clenched. "I demand transparency." Charles pressed a button on the panel beside me. The mirrored wall shimmered and cleared, and for the first time in years I stepped into the room. Cole's face went pale. "Hello, Cole." He stepped back like he'd seen a ghost. "What the—" "You remember Ethan, don't you?" Charles said coolly. "But he's just—" I raised my hand. "Let me save you the embarrassment. I'm Ethan Donovan, sole heir, majority shareholder, and the man who's been watching you from day one." The room went dead silent. Margot turned to the others. "All in favor of a leadership reassignment vote?" Hands went up, one after the other. Cole just stood there, stunned, speechless, stripped. I walked past him, leaned in, and whispered just loud enough, "You didn't just cheat with my wife. You tried to steal my father's legacy." Then I looked up and addressed the room. "I'm home." Rachel called me 16 times that night. I didn't answer a single one. Chapter 7, The Reckoning. Rachel showed up at the apartment around 8 p.m. that night, after her calls went unanswered. I was sitting in the living room, the lights low, a single glass of scotch in my hand. I didn't bother getting up when she walked in. She stood in the doorway, looking disheveled, pale, rattled. "You?" she said quietly. "You were at the board meeting." I didn't answer right away. Just took a slow sip and watched her squirm. "I didn't know," she stammered. "Ethan, you never said no," I interrupted. "You never asked." That silenced her. She walked forward, step by step, as if she were approaching a bomb. "Why didn't you tell me you were the heir?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Because I wanted to know who would love me without the name, without the power, without the money." She froze. Her lip trembled. "I gave you the simplest version of me," I continued, "and you made it very clear that version wasn't good enough." "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." She tried to sit, but I didn't invite her. She sank into the edge of the couch anyway, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "You don't understand what it was like," she said. "You were passive, comfortable. You didn't want more." "I didn't want your version of more." She flinched. "I built a life for us," I said, "one with peace, simplicity, honesty." "Honesty?" she snapped. "You lied about your identity because I had to, because I wanted something real." Her face twisted. "And what? You punish me like this? You destroy Cole?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "Cole destroyed himself. He used company money like his personal wallet, slept with an employee, my wife, lied to shareholders. I didn't even need to twist the knife. I just showed them the truth." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing for them. "Ethan," she whispered, "I made a mistake. No, a mistake is forgetting an anniversary, spilling coffee on my laptop. What you did was a choice, over and over. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. You lied to my face for months, slept with a man you said was just your boss, and you made me feel like I was the fool, like I was less than. That's not a mistake, Rachel, that's cruelty. The room went quiet again. She finally looked up. Her voice cracked. Can we fix this? I laughed. Actually laughed. Fix this? She nodded, desperate now. We were good once. We can be again. I lost sight of us. But I still love you, Ethan. No, you don't, I said softly. You loved the idea of someone who adored you blindly, who wouldn't challenge your ambition, who would stay behind while you chased excitement. I stood and walked to the window, staring out over the city. I was willing to be that man, I said. But now I see he never stood a chance. I turned back to her. I'm filing for divorce. Her whole body jerked. What? You'll get the paperwork tomorrow, and I want you out of this apartment by the end of the week. You can't just... Ethan, this is our life. No, this was my life. You just borrowed it, and then tried to burn it down. Tears finally broke free, rolling down her cheeks. Please, she whispered, don't do this. I walked to the door, opened it, and gestured. Good night, Rachel. She didn't move at first. Then slowly, with trembling hands, she stood and walked past me, pausing only once in the doorway. I never meant to lose you, she said. I didn't reply. Because she hadn't lost me, she'd thrown me away. Chapter 8, Taking the Throne. The office felt different now. I stepped out of the private elevator on the executive floor, no longer the invisible man in IT. Every set of eyes followed me, some curious, some cautious, others respectful. But I wasn't here for applause. I was here to lead. The office that had once belonged to Cole was now mine. The door still had his name on the frosted glass, but that would change soon. I had the maintenance crew take it down by noon. Inside, I found boxes. Some filled, some half-packed, like a ghost trying to hold on to relevance. Cole hadn't returned since the board meeting, and he never would. I sat behind the desk, not his desk, my desk, and for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel since this mess began. Peace. My first move was surgical. I called for a complete internal audit, not just of financials, but of team dynamics, project trajectories, and employee morale. I promoted quiet talents who had been overlooked, demoted loud mouths who thrived on politics, and removed the parasites Cole had protected. Rachel's resignation had already come through. I hadn't demanded it. She did that herself, probably to avoid the embarrassment of being the CEO's disgraced mistress. I signed it without a second thought. By the end of the week, I'd appointed a new chief operating officer and restructured our innovation wing. Every decision I made was precise, measured, strategic, but none of it was for revenge. It was about redemption, for the company, for my father's legacy, for me. Margot stepped into my office Friday afternoon, holding a thin envelope. Divorce papers ready for filing, she said gently. I nodded and took them. Thank you. She lingered a moment. You sure you don't want to talk to her one last time? I did talk to her, I said, eyes on the skyline. I just stopped listening. Margot didn't argue. She only left the papers on my desk and walked out with that quiet grace of hers. I didn't open the envelope, didn't need to. It was already done in my heart. That night, I walked through the Donovan innovation floor alone. The lights were dimmed, the hum of tech still alive in the servers. I paused in front of the framed photo of my father, William Donovan, the man who built this company from scratch and raised me with two core values: humility and vigilance. I'd abandoned the second for the sake of love. I wouldn't make that mistake again. I'm here now, Dad. I won't let it fall. Over the next month, the transformation was undeniable. The press caught wind of Cole's resignation and the board restructuring. The headlines buzzed about the mystery heir, the quiet return, and Donovan 2.0. I didn't give interviews. I didn't seek fame. I let the work speak, and people listened. Investor confidence surged. Product pipelines stabilized. Internal morale flourished. But despite it all, I didn't celebrate. Not yet, because my heart hadn't caught up with the victory. One afternoon, I found myself walking into the old coffee shop Rachel and I used to visit. The barista, a college kid with piercings and a tired smile, recognized me. Hey, he said. You're Rachel's guy, right? Was, I corrected. Oh, sorry, man. She used to come in with some older dude, Real suit and tie energy, thought he was your boss or something. He didn't know. He had no idea what he just said. It's okay, I replied. Enjoy your shift. He nodded, confused. I walked out and never looked back. That night I stood in my new penthouse, alone. It was quiet, expensive, cold, but it was mine, and this time no one else would own a piece of me without earning it. Chapter 9. Ghosts and Guests. I wasn't expecting the message. Not after all this time. Not from her. I was sipping my morning espresso, scanning quarterly reports on my tablet, when the notification popped up, an email from an address I hadn't seen in years. Subject: It's been a long time, Ethan. From julianne.sharp@protonmail.com. My breath caught. I hadn't heard that name in over a decade. Julianne Sharp. My first real love. The one who broke my heart long before Rachel ever got the chance. We were together in college, back when I still believed in easy endings and simple truths. She was ambitious, bright, charming in a way that made other people orbit her. But in the end, she left me for someone better aligned with her future. A future that didn't include a man pretending not to be a billionaire heir. Back then, I was just Ethan Donovan, the student on a full ride under a fake last name. Julianne had no idea I came from money, and when she left, I let her go, quietly. But now she was back. The message was short. Ethan, I've seen what you've done with Donovan Enterprises. It's impressive. I didn't realize it was you until I saw the shareholder name during the press release. I'm in town for a few days. Would love to catch up. No expectations, just coffee. Jay, I sat with it for a long time, not because I still cared, but because I wasn't sure why I hesitated. Hadn't I moved on? Wasn't I done with women who couldn't see me until I had power? We met at a discreet rooftop cafe overlooking the river. She hadn't changed much, still stylish, still confident, but there was something in her eyes now, something softer, maybe even regret. Ethan, she greeted, standing from her seat. Wow. Julianne. I shook her hand, firm and detached. You look well. So do you. The press photos don't do you justice. I didn't respond to that. I sat. She laughed gently, brushing hair from her face. Still guarded, I see. Still prefer honesty. That earned a pause. She folded her hands. I meant what I said in the email. I've followed Donovan Enterprises for years, had no idea you were behind the scenes. You've done something incredible. I didn't do it for recognition. No, that's what makes it more impressive. There was a flicker of sincerity in her voice, and I hated that part of me still wanted to believe it. We talked for nearly an hour. She asked about my transition into the public role, how it felt to lead a company tied so deeply to family legacy. I gave safe answers. Then she asked about Rachel. I didn't flinch. She cheated on me with my CEO. Julianne's mouth parted in surprise. Ethan, I'm sorry. I'm not. It showed me exactly who I married and who I never want to be again. She nodded slowly. You were always too generous with people who didn't earn it. You would know. The words left before I could stop them. But she didn't get angry. She looked down, her smile fading. I deserved that, she admitted. Back then I thought love had to come with power, money, a ladder to climb. And now I understand the difference between love and leverage. We parted with a hug, polite, distant. She didn't ask for more, didn't angle for a second meeting. I respected that, but the encounter stayed with me, not because I wanted her back, but because for the first time I saw clearly the pattern I'd been blind to for so long. Julianne, Rachel, even Cole. All of them had taught me the same lesson. Never confuse attention for affection, and never offer your soul to someone shopping for assets. The next morning, I sent a memo to the board. I'd be restructuring our philanthropic branch to focus on mentorship and opportunity programs for underprivileged students, especially those who, like me, grew up hiding who they really were. It was time to stop pretending. Time to lead like a Donovan. Chapter 10. Full Circle. The day Rachel signed the final divorce papers, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. We met in the office conference room, the air thick with memories neither of us dared speak aloud. Her eyes were red-rimmed but defiant. So this is it, she said softly. Yes, I replied, voice steady. It's over. For a moment, we just sat there, two people once bound by vows, now strangers divided by truth. After she left, I closed the door and stared at the city skyline, the same skyline I'd dreamed beneath as a kid, before I knew my real place in it. I thought about my father's voice, steady and calm from years ago. Remember, Ethan, strength isn't about who you crush, it's about who you lift. Those words were a beacon when everything else was dark. I took a deep breath and stepped into my office. No longer the man hiding in shadows, no longer the wronged husband defined by betrayal. I was Ethan Donovan, heir, leader, and above all, my own man. The next weeks were a blur of work, strategy, and rebuilding. I met with the board to finalize plans for innovation and growth. I introduced a new executive team, diverse, talented, hungry for change. I personally reached out to employees who had been sidelined during Cole's reign. I listened to their ideas, frustrations, and hopes. The company wasn't just mine, it was ours. One evening, Margot stopped by my office with a small envelope. "This came for you," she said quietly. Inside was a letter from Rachel. I hesitated before reading it. She wrote, "Ethan, I was wrong. I lost myself chasing shadows, and in doing so, I lost you. I don't ask for forgiveness, but I want you to know I wish you nothing but peace and success. Goodbye." Rachel, I folded the letter carefully. No bitterness, no blame, just finality. That night, I walked alone to the rooftop garden of my penthouse. The city lights shimmered like stars beneath me. I thought about the long road, the betrayals, the losses, the moments I wanted to give up. But here I was, stronger, wiser, free. I pulled out my phone and called Julianne. "Ethan," she answered, surprised but warm. "I want to thank you," I said, "for reminding me that real strength is found in truth, and for helping me close old chapters." She smiled softly. We both needed that. As I hung up, I realized I wasn't looking backward anymore. I was ready to build something new, something honest, powerful, and truly mine. The legacy of Donovan Enterprises wasn't just about money or titles. It was about resilience, about integrity, and above all, about knowing who you are beneath the mask. I was ready.